Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Stories, #Candid Conversations with my cousin. My name is Lauren Britz and my wonderful, beautiful co-host, all the way from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Lauren Britz. How are you doing?
Hi, Kevin. How are you doing today? I'm doing so good. It's
good, man.
It's a good day in Florida today.
Good day in Florida. So how is everything happened? How's your week been? I know that you went away. I know there's it's actually part of what we're going to be discussing about today. How was the time? It's sort of a work break, but a birthday work break kind of thing.
Yeah, we went away to celebrate a 40th for my boyfriend, and we had a great time. And you know, we were away on the island, all the way across the west coast of Florida. So it's a little bit different from the east coast of Florida, which is where we live here in Fort Lauderdale. And it was just beautiful, you know, wild dolphins, amazing sunsets. And, you know, what else could we ask for? So it was good. It was really amazing.
Living in paradise.
It was.
So recently we just had some interesting events happening. So that, well, not interesting, but I found it quite interesting. It's like, I want to get someone else's perspective about this. I thought, okay, well, I know we chat about anything. So I thought, let me ask you. Recently, there has been a very famous, well, he's pretty famous because he's on the adverts for a very, very famous insurance company in South Africa. Okay. As the lead sort of presenter, and he promotes this insurance company. I'm not going to give them free advertising, so we'll just call it the insurance company. And he also does he's also present on a morning show on television. And recently,
I think I know maybe who that is, but keep going.
Yeah, so recently he's been outed as someone who cheated on his wife. And the outing was really bad. The reason why I bring it up, because the outing was really bad because his wife recorded him and then posted it. And because, I mean, he's quite famous in South Africa. People know his face. People know his name. People know him for these adverts and for being the presenter on a morning show. So I get that the cheating element is there. I totally get that. Yes. But what I'm struggling to have wrap my brain around is the outing of someone like that in their failure publicly and almost ruining him, almost like vengefully ruining him. Yeah. I kind of watched because I'm like, oh my God, like this is interesting. This is to be out and known and well known in a country, and for your wife to go to that degree and she, when you watch the whole asking him, who was this and why you're denying this, just admit to me that you did this, and she carried on and swore at him. I kind of thought, wow, do you think that's, and the question I have just to pose out there.
Yeah, this is very interesting, actually. Very interesting from
But the question is, is it a case where we've got to the point where people are just simply not allowed to make mistakes? Like no matter what they do, you will be held accountable to the nth degree, and and if you make a mistake according to how people judge that mistake, you are then suddenly tarnished and branded as, oh, you are that guy.
Did he lose his job?
Well, he's been taken off there. He's been taken off all the campaigns for all the advertising.
So that has happened.
He's stopped presenting. Everything's been put on hold. And I'm kind of going, I get that, what he did was what he did. There's no denying that. But have we come to that point in our lives where we kind of just
I mean, listen, I'm sitting here in America.
Yeah, no,
I really want to give you the
for this, and it's
so I'm listening to the story, and I'm like, hold on, did you hear this on TMZ, or was it, Hollywood Now? Or I'm
No,
like,
it's
so what? You know, like
right
this
at home.
happens
Yeah.
every single day, you know, to some degree, but some are worse than others. I mean, I just want to take you back for a second just to draw a comparison on how the world reacts. I know that he's probably not world famous necessarily, but still the same applies for where he is, right? So, you know, Tiger Woods. You know, Tiger Woods was a very famous. Here he is. I watched him play the Open the other day, and he was amazing. Still golfing, still doing his thing. Redeemed. You know, I was actually commenting on how he'd been redeemed. I mean, his case was kind of severe. I don't know what the case is here, but you know, there was a big story behind that where Elon literally was smashing the cars of his window in, and it was being reported as it was going on. You know, so. Talk about an outing, you know, and then the spiral of that, you know, and then he lost everything. And I think, you know, there's another famous one, Beyonce and Jay-Z in the elevator where I think Beyonce's sister like smacked him in the face or something, you know, and he was like, I'm so sorry. You know, I mean, how long's a piece of string? You know, I think it's a personal affair, you know, that should be managed personally, but it's such a terrible thing to do sometimes to people that it hurts, you know. So I'm sure she's just really hurting, and she just wants to take revenge on that.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing. I completely I get why she's angry. I get like, but when you go from this the brands that are associated to this well, he's young. That's why I want to say this young boy, but he's a young man. The brands that are some of the most important brands, and like biggest brand, known names, household names in South Africa, and they have just kind of gone, oh well,
they'll
thanks,
be back.
but no thanks.
I think they'll be back. I think it's a matter of managing from a marketing perspective and a branding perspective, damage control, and actually perhaps just trying to, you know, manage the damage control on the actual brand for a little while.
Absolutely. But then my question is, okay, why hasn't anyone publicly made a statement and said, listen, we are aware of the fact that this has happened. We are sorry for what has happened, etc., etc. There's just been kind of like,
nobody's talking about it.
No, they just left this poor man to his devices and go, okay, we're not supporting you as a person anymore. And like, this is his livelihood. Like, his livelihood is completely in question.
I mean,
and I'm not saying what he did was okay.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people would then say, well, if he had known that and respected that, then why didn't he really respect that and not put it, you know, himself in these situations? But then, of course, other people would say, well, even, you know, we all screw up sometimes, and sometimes we screw up royally, but that doesn't make us, you know, evil people. Some people are evil, I think, you know, to some degree on their happenings. But I guess it all depends. You know, I just think of how Tiger acted, and I only use him as an example because that was a very public, very international story. And he's doing great now, and everyone's fine now. But that took a while. The thing is that, you know, everybody did exactly the same thing, but he made a public statement nevertheless. It's just what he did was so bad that people couldn't wrap their minds around it, you know.
But if I was the PR company of this, I would be like, okay, cool. So you made a really big, bad decision, and you've attached some of the most important brands in South Africa to your name, and now it's out there. We need to use this and fix people's lives and make something better out of it, so that so we can actually change you and change, you know, what the outcome of this is. But they've just kind of left it.
The fact that they don't come in and make a public statement with him, you know, like, it's almost disarming. People might care less, actually, to be honest. If you just come at it and be like, you know, here we are, you know, if these things happen, and kind of make some sort of apology maybe, or just do something publicly to disarm the crowd, and then, you know, see from there. You're going to have to put him on a hiatus at some point. I mean, otherwise he could really destroy the brand. But it could be, it has to be managed. Public perception is really what they're looking at. So they have ways of gauging what's happening from one day to the next as far as public perception goes. And it just seems like if that's the case, they just dropped him and they're never coming back for him. Maybe they only do come back for people like Tiger Woods. Who knows? I don't know. But I know they came back for him. So,
and I think why I resonate with this is because I did the very famous Steve voice for so long.
Gotcha.
And because they also made a really bad decision when they actually changed agencies. Well, that's the story that I know. And suddenly there was no more Steve. Like it was instantly from being the most famous radio voice on radio to, thanks for everything you've done and thanks for building this brand, but we're no longer. And I'm going, hang on, where do you get to a point where you can actually go, okay, so this isn't working. How do we create an opportunity from this?
I think it's just a matter of, pivoting, having a think tank or just a couple of, meetings where you're sitting and really troubleshooting, like damage control. This is what damage control should be. But I think it's interesting to me how that same sort of mindset of let's not talk about it that you find in so many families and societies and lifestyles also permeates itself so much through business. Like, okay, let's just drop it and not talk about it again, and let's just go over there.
Almost as if he's the first person who's ever cheated in a relationship. And I'm going, no, hang on.
And listen, don't get me wrong, I would be devastated if that happened.
Absolutely.
And you know the details and if it was, who it was. And those details always sometimes make it a little bit worse or not. But, at the same time, I know around here in America, there's so much going on that news is newsworthy for maybe a day, 2 days. I mean, depending on what the story was, Tiger's a little longer, but most of these stories, like Beyonce's story came and went and nobody cared. Nobody literally cared. It was well, I hope you smacked him hard. That was kind of like what people said. Well, I guess he got what was coming, but they worked it out at the end of the day.
So another alarming fact, and for those who don't know, this show is pre-recorded, so we might be back in lockdown by the time you hear this. South Africa might go back into serious lockdown.
This is
which is all over the news. And I was like, oh, wow, just to hear that is quite disappointing because there's so much trauma that has happened because of it, but also so much change that people have started really, really being aware of their surroundings and the cleanliness and masks and so for us to have to kind of step back like this and go into, and it's not just sort of one level down, it's come serious.
What is has there been any, it's just a matter of control or it's a matter of there's a reason?
Yeah, there's just a lot more COVID cases happening and a lot more showing up.
Is that true though? Is that actually true? You think?
Yeah, so this is being reported all over South African news. So it's a little bit scary because apparently the president's going to be talking to us this week about it. So we'll know whether we're going back into steep lockdown or if we're just being friendly warned, having a friendly warning about it. But yeah, so that's a little bit scary. But the one thing that I did want to check in with you on is the big presidential vote is coming up, like the D-Day, and it's literally around the corner. There's a couple of days going. And
yeah, I'm going to go vote tomorrow, I think. We have early voting, so if you're registered, I just walk up the road to the school and in fact, I have my ballot already, so I can read through it and I get it sent to me through the mail. But I don't do mail-in voting because the school I vote at is 10 steps from my house. So that's easy for me and no point, sending it through the mail if I can just do that. But, it's, have you been watching the presidential debate?
I haven't. I've watched the first one. I haven't watched the second one. But what I have seen and noticed about the the publicity, the everything every YouTube channel and every late night TV show, and
Oh,
they
yeah,
they
they're so
have an
original, right?
opinion about Mr. Trump. But what's interesting is, though, I
Did
do
you see the
struggle to
video of
find.
him dancing?
Yes,
It was funny. I enjoyed it.
embarrassingly.
I love it.
But what I do agree with is I struggle to find where he ever makes logical sense. Like, I struggle to have, oh yes, Mr. Trump, that really did make sense. That was like a key point you made there. And
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
almost like he's just either he's a really nervous, bad public speaker, or he just really doesn't know how to support anything with fact.
I really want to give, I totally understand what you're saying. And I'm bipartisan. Like, I am not indoctrinated into American culture per se.
Yeah.
And so therefore, as we know, I'm not held by their political culture either.
Yeah.
So for me, I'll change parties every year if I like. And I might just do that, because why not? Why should I not hold the party I vote for accountable?
Absolutely.
And if you're not going to do what you say, then let's move over to the other side, see what happens there. But, I understand the fear that a lot of people have. And what I want to say about, this particular question is, I would really suggest that people start looking where they are finding their news. I know that sounds great, because CNN and other places like that sound great, but I would become just very discerning about what you hear from anywhere. It doesn't matter where you're hearing it from. I'm a photographer. I'm a professional. I've been in this industry a long time. I do a lot of production work, and I have seen how things can be manipulated. So what's very interesting is I have seen the same footage you've seen, where he seems almost incoherent. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then I've seen other footage where I'm like, hold on a second. This I did not see on the news. Why is that? I'm an ex-journalist. I'm also an extremely curious person. So, and my way of doing things is taking inferred information and just kind of like putting, the dots together. So what I would say is, I have actually had the benefit of listening to some of these interviews that he's had by mainstream media journalists, but more about people who are like writers and literature. They're into their literature, and they do all, professors and other types of people who come without an agenda. Yeah. Honestly, well, maybe they have an agenda, but it certainly doesn't really matter, to the actual story. But the truth is that I have seen both of these, and I'm starting to become super suspicious of where my news comes from. So I've become I don't trust any of the news outlets anymore. I am not a conspiracy theorist either. Yeah. Like, I'll read that too and be like, okay, yeah, no. I mean, I'll discern there too if I want to. I don't say all of them are wrong. That would be not smart to do, because you can't say anything from a whole group of anything is like that. There's always some level of truth in something.
No, and don't agree. I think for me, it's like I've seen a lot of online information about Joe Biden as well. That's quite sketchy, and so but I think for me, the whole reasoning behind Trump getting COVID and suddenly 3 days later, it's fine. And then he goes out publicly saying, yeah, this is the kind of medical treatment he wants to give the whole country. Yeah. And it's like, dude, you have the most important people in your country working on you. Like, there is no way that you're going to provide that kind of service to like 300 million people.
Well, he said he wanted to provide the drug for free. So, it's interesting the way the American government works. It's because he's just the president, but that's actually a really big seat to be in, right? Because the whole world is looking at you. Yeah. But there's a much larger picture though around that has taken me 15 years to figure out. So good luck. And just know always that there's a lot more going on. And also what I would say is, it is very optimistic at the moment, and I think we all should be optimistic to expect anything different, because we're not choosing anymore between values and this and that and that. It's, we are sitting at home thinking about how we've been affected and how and who has helped us. That is the only proof I have. I can't listen to you talk anymore, especially after one of my things personally that I believe, whether you are on this side or that side, if you have been there for that long, there's something wrong with that. It's like stagnant water, just sort of sitting there for 50 years, you're not going to drink it. You're not going to drink it. So that's for me very important. But you have to look at the whole bigger picture as well. Even if Donald Trump does become president again, what happens next? What happens after that 4 years,
Well, if he does, I'm like, damn, it's going to be interesting next 4 years.
It's been the craziest experience living here. And also you must remember, Donald is he's a Florida resident now. So, and he always has been. But he was originally registered in New York City, but now he's officially registered in Florida. So he comes here often, so it's, he has a big golf course just up here in West Palm Beach. So when he comes around, that whole entire area has to be closed, including the entire airport. So it can cause a little ruckus, but it's a difficult one. If you go and look at this side of it, you can find dirt on every single one of those people. You go look at this side, you find dirt on. There is no more news telling you what to do anymore. You have to go inside and kind of feel it out for yourself.
Yeah. A lot more investigation needs to happen.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just crazy. I don't believe anything anymore. I watch from a distance. I'm more in an observation seat,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Lance, in aim of what we're talking about tonight, we've already used so much time, but in aim of what we're on tonight, I know it's today, somewhere like today, this afternoon.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Remember, that's going to be our slogan for this. 5 o'clock somewhere.
What are we chatting about tonight? Don't you want to preface that for us in terms of, I know that because you went away, you were working, but yet you went away, you could still work and be on holiday. Like, don't you want to preface what we are chatting about?
Sure. Yes. It's, as I've been building my businesses and I've been sort of working with entrepreneurs and still other people that also have your typical sort of 9 to 5, it's more 8 to 6 job. And, there's nothing wrong with the work you do, and not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, or take on that whole role in life. It's not for everybody. But I do see work life changing, regardless of whether you work for a company or whether you work for yourself. Now, if you work for yourself, you might be able to instill and input these types of things into your life much easier. But working for a company, even these days, it seems that, we used to have this industrial revolution thinking. That back in the Industrial Revolution, you would work 7 days a week.
And you'd be black and covered with charcoal. Yes.
I mean, you worked in a toothpaste factory, putting caps on toothpaste. It was that was why capitalism just boomed, right? And everything just happened there. But it then enslaved a lot of people. And we've all been somewhat enslaved to that Industrial Revolution thinking. It's just as we go, now we have the weekends, we have 2 days off, So now I'm sitting thinking, even that is changing a lot. Because here as I live my life from day to day, there is really no separation between working, or at least the time set aside to do this or the time set aside to do that. My calendar now looks like wake up, have your thinking time, meditate, exercise, then you're on your first call, then you're working, then you're doing this, then you're going to a shoot, then you got to go grocery shopping.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of coming together as one life instead of these segmented parts of, okay, all of us can relate to this. All right, you wake up in the morning, you fly out of your bed, the alarm clock is screaming in your ear, you're like, oh my God, I'm late. How many tickets and how many times have I done this? I've gotten one too many traffic tickets doing this, putting my makeup on in the car, rushing to my job, being late always, it seemed, and just never really ahead of my day, So it's become interesting to me just how this is changing a lot. And I think we need to talk about it more, because a lot of people think you can only have that when you're an entrepreneur, and that's also not necessarily true.
So work and life are not mutually exclusive anymore, right? That's sort of the theme?
They're moving towards not being mutually exclusive. I think for some people that is true, and for some people that is a dream, and for some people that, they're going that way. But regardless of where you find yourself as far as work goes these days, I think that's where we're going to end up anyway, where your life and your work just sort of merge, and they're no longer mutually exclusive yet.
So, I was looking at the actual definition of mutually exclusive, just so, because I want to understand, how does that really, what is the reference that it's referring to? And one of the definitions online is mutually exclusive is a statistical term describing two or more events that cannot happen simultaneously. And what's interesting is that's exactly what, COVID has been a beautiful example of this, that just because you're home now doesn't mean you can't work. Just because because COVID happened, there's so much that's still possible. Just because COVID's happened, it doesn't mean we can't do school at home. So much of our usual way of working has been challenged and completely thrown out the window. I remember in South Africa a post, and I'll have to find the exact university that did this, but a university in South Africa that went from having obviously in-person classes every day to within 3 weeks putting everything, the entire curriculum online and being able to do everything online. And I was going, wow, suddenly it just goes to show, as a university, you've got thousands of students. And up until this moment, there has been no kind of urgency to kind of give information to people at a distance. Suddenly, COVID happens, and the entire way of work, the way that they did it, the schooling changed. And I was going, well, there we go. As much as COVID is what it is and horrible, the other side of that coin is, as humans, we are unbelievably adaptable to our surroundings.
Absolutely.
And suddenly coming up with solutions.
I remember when I lived in Centurion, which was now 15 years ago. And it was weird because I remember a remote workspace that was built there, but it was hardly ever used by anybody. I saw it just because it was always there. And my boss at the time was pretty open-minded. So if I had to go work there, sometimes I could, but it was like, wow, your boss let you leave. And look, even when I arrived in America, the American corporate work, just the mindset around corporate America, especially things like advertising and design and, these agency style corporations, some of them have the sayings, sleep when you're dead, because how dare you have a life? Put everything. I had to leopard crawl out of the building sometimes at 11 p.m., just to get out of there. And eventually I couldn't handle it anymore. And I was like, see you later. But, why work like that? It's not the most productive way to work anymore, And a lot of people think that this is just for well, I don't know how to start my own business and, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you don't have to. If you're a business owner of any kind, why don't you start thinking about a work-life balance for the people that work for you instead of this, like, why are you leaving the building? Oh, I want to go eat lunch. Why are you eating lunch? It's just shifting a lot, because humans can be trusted. If you are hiring the right people and you're hiring the right resources, they can be trusted, right? You hired them. So otherwise you're hiring the wrong people. You need to come check, Kevin out here and he'll do it for you. But,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's changing. And I think people need to start really looking at that. While I was away, it was weird for me to go away for a week. I was like, how am I going to do that? And I was like, I can do that. I got a laptop, and I've got my videos. And as I was walking on the island, which is an island in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
I walk into the shop and I see this. The first thing I see is this. And I'm like, what?
And for those who are listening,
I can't get away from.
it's a bottle of red wine called Bry. So it's Bry Pinotage, all the way from South Africa.
Bry Pinotage, South African classic, and I'm not sure who makes it. It's in the Western Cape, of course, and then of course we had our Baines
all the way into sunny Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we had a great time. We had a lot of our Bry wine, and we had some Baines, which was great as well to have some South African whiskey. And now the balance is that I am currently drinking what looks like neon green celery juice, because this is my medicine in life. This is what keeps me going, keeps me looking young, and keeps me vibrant.
Absolutely.
But it's a balance.
But the point you're making, there's a very famous, well, he's pretty famous now, but his name's Keith Verrazzi. He used to be the CMO for Deloitte a couple of years ago, but now he's just an entrepreneur and well, not just an entrepreneur, he's fairly famous and very successful in doing what he does. But Keith Verrazzi, one of the TED Talks I think he gives specifically speaks about how we are considering our workforce and where the downfalls are. And here's one of the clinches that he mentions is what happens in entrepreneurs is we have a great idea. It really starts kicking off. People get successful. They start building a company. They have 100 people in the company, and suddenly they go, wow, there's so much people here to manage. We definitely have to get someone in HR to manage these people. And his sentiments are, it's one of the biggest mistakes we make is to suddenly go away from me as the employer having connected with the people I work with and suddenly putting some system person in place to kind of deal with all of that. And his advice, which I find really, really interesting, especially in the workforce of the future and how we should start conceptualizing how we do work, is really aimed at which 10 of these people are the strengths that I need for this team, and how do I have short bursts of interaction with them, and how do we deliver on this deadline or this project. Right. And really just hone in the skill of paying people to achieve a result instead of all of this hierarchical kind of structure. And putting people in place who need to answer, and then you need a system, and then you need a way of doing this, and then you need a procedure, and instead of all of that, completely skew away from that and start getting back to a point where you're actually, you as the employer are working with those 10 people on that project. You're paying those people for that amount of time to finish that project and deliver by X date. By doing that, we are alleviating the whole 9 to 5 kind of schedule. We are alleviating when people actually want to work.
Absolutely. It becomes razor sharp. It's like a hard yes and a hard no. Like you're like, okay, this is the job. This is what I need. Can you do it? Yes, I can. All right, great. I don't have to worry about it then, right? Until you deliver it, because I'm investing in you to do so. And I'm learning that as I am hiring people and, finding people to work for me, which is like a mind bend initially. I'm like, you're working for me? That's weird. But you're not working for me. You're working kind of with me, but I'm just building the team.
Yeah.
And it's a different mindset, because even Branson has taken this on heavily. He's very famous for not having, a set amount of vacation days, for many of his employees. Like, if you need vacation, take it. If you need to go to the store, go to the store. If you need to go to your kid's school, go to your kid's school. But whatever you do, deliver on your tasks. Because if you don't deliver on your tasks, then you don't get to stay, I guess, then I guess you don't get the best of both worlds. But it's definitely a shift of mindset into the future workforce, for sure.
And I think that's that's the key word is the mindset. I remember, and I'm sure you'll relate so perfectly because we come from the same family. A family, I'm just going to say a family member, because I know some of them watch the YouTube series, and I'm like, okay, we need to be more specific about what I say. A family member always said to me, "Oh, what if you don't work, you're not going to get paid, and if you're not willing to work, you're just lazy." And I remember instinctively from a I don't know, I wasn't even a teenager yet. I remember thinking, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't. Why do I? And his narrative was like, well, if you want a thing done, then you have to work really hard to get it done.
Yeah, this is a belief system that has been ingrained in us, and it's so not true. It's a lie. That was true, I guess. Maybe it was true during the Industrial Revolution, where you had to fight really hard to get a job, if you weren't digging for gold. So, and there were other jobs, I'm sure, were available. But, it's so true. It's why do we have to work hard? Why must we suffer and work? Why can't we just enjoy our work, do it diligently, and be organized about it and work smartly and exponentially, instead of being so linear? But, I don't want to hold their thinking against them, but I do want to say that it is so important to be open-minded about change, because if you're a human being on this earth for, let's say, 90 years, if you're lucky, or more, things are going to change. So you might want to realize, like, I need to keep up with some of the things that I need to keep going with, because it's not always going to be the same. I know I'm going to have to change to meet some idea in the future. So, it's okay that people thought that and still think that. People say it all the time. I hustle. I'm a hustler. Yay, I work hard. That's fine if you want to hustle, but it just sounds like a lot of hard work. And I feel like I could do the same work in a shorter, different space of time. So
yeah, I was talking to another really successful entrepreneur, business owner in South Africa as well. He runs the Good Things. He's called the Good Things guy in South Africa, Brent Lideke.
Yeah, actually, I know who that is. Yeah.
Yeah, and he surprisingly, we were just chatting about how he does what he does, and considering the topic we're talking about, where it's, life and work is not mutually exclusive, for him, it's so true, because he just got to a point where he's like, I really, 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 really want to do this. And today you kind of go, okay, so how do you do what you do? And like, what happens in your world? And he kind of goes, he's forever working. He doesn't have a moment where he goes, oh, I've got to get up and I have to go to work. I've got to go do that thing. I've got to make sure there's good news in the world. He doesn't have that. But supported by that, he also absolutely loves what he does, right? So he's writing.
Work, yeah.
Yeah, he writes and lives that life to the degree that it's completely just who he is. So for him, it's like, okay, so what are you doing? No, well, I'm writing. Obviously, I'm writing because, so many things have to happen this week. And it's like, oh, what's next? And it's quite nice to actually witness that in like real form. You kind of go, oh, well, there's another person who just lives true passion. And then you kind of go, well, where's that thin line between, well, when do you work and when do you not work? And I think that too is a mindset. I think it's like
100%. Why should they not be the same thing? I mean, because you're alive, you got to eat and you got to sleep and you've got to be around other people and you've got to do what you love. That's just one part of the component. But for some reason, we took that part out and made it like so super, like, because you could earn money that way by physically doing something. But I see it with a lot of people, even, new entrepreneurs. I see it in successful entrepreneurs. It's really definitely a mindset. I know I live in a place that is nice and sunny and the world, it's a tropical, beautiful place. But it's also a swampy, crazy place. So you kind of develop this, when am I going to go buy groceries? Well, it kind of fits into your schedule. It just does. And is it weird to schedule your grocery buying? Well, not if it's working for you. Like I like the idea of being scheduled myself. Yeah. But if I'm scheduling, my next trip to Egypt to go and photograph a businessman on the pyramids, I mean, what am I doing? Am I working or am I playing? I don't know anymore.
No, I think that's so true because I'm
focused, but it's, you're very focused on your work, but you love it so much that you're like, well, this is just heaven,
Yeah, I used the word the other day. I think I used it with Donald when we were chatting about the importance of making things happen and mindset and I said I use the word, but I use it loosely, and I use the word lazy. And I was going, people get to a point where they're just lazy to show up for themselves, right? And you kind of, and maybe it's lazy is a strong word. Absolutely.
Fear, I think we've used the word fear for that as well, and fear.
Right. And I think it's just a case of going, because for when you're saying managing your time, my first thought process to that is I manage or I schedule downtime for myself when I'm going, cool, between my appointments, between my presentations, between my having to get stuff done, I kind of go, there's like an hour here. Then I like literally, I'll put it in my schedule so that no one can click on that time slot. And I'll literally schedule rest or chill, go and sit in the sun. Like based on the fact that I know that for my world to exist, a lot of what I need to be able to do is have inner world time, like inner brain space. And I know you do exactly the same. Like you scheduled like your mornings when you go like paddle skiing and stuff, right?
Yeah, we have our board meetings on the water. we go paddle boarding generally every Wednesday morning. We do it other times too, but that's our set board meeting. Yeah. We go out on a beautiful lake. We all have our blow-up paddle boards. We blow them up, and then we all go. And sometimes we take Katana, our little furry friend, with us. And we go paddling, and everyone's like, "Oh, what a beautiful life you have!" Yeah, guess what we're doing? We're talking about cryptocurrencies. We're talking about currency. We talk about the stock market. We talk about business because we all do business together, the three of us. And for us, it's also a mental break and a really good way to take a mental break midweek. And it's beautiful. So you can't help it. Just, it's so pretty outside. Even if you're stressing about things, it's going to calm you down. But, the other thing that you said was you have to schedule that time. Now, if you think about it, most of the entrepreneurs and most of my mentors that were crazy entrepreneurs, they never stopped, ever. I don't know how they did it. I think some of them didn't make it. But those that made it, had to eventually force themselves to really slow down because, you know, entrepreneurs really enjoy what they do. That's why they just keep going. They love what they do. They love creating. And sometimes you can get obsessed with it. You know, you go through these modes where you just want to create. And you have to really put the brakes on and be like, okay, you need your downtime, you know? So, you know, on Donald, our friend Donald's mastermind that I love doing with that crew. You
Donald Kelly, yes.
Yes, fabulous Donald Kelly, the sales evangelist. We have, you know, Mark, this lovely Mark. Mark is a coach, also a business coach, and he's in Hawaii. You know, he lives in Hawaii. That one step better than Florida is Hawaii. But, you know, you can see he's got that Hawaii lifestyle, but he's still very focused on his work. You know, and I think a lot of people have been told that that's not okay. It's bad. That's not what success, that is what success looks like, I think. You know, is for me personally, if I can go and work, you know, anywhere in the world, or I can just enjoy my work-life balance. It's I have children, but I can work and have my children and take, you know, and be available to them. It depending on what your balance and what your needs are. But for me, it's definitely bringing those two worlds in, however you need to do it, whether you need to schedule or whatever it is you need to do. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so important.
Lal, so in summary of today's conversation, you know, speaking about really wrapping your brain around why work and life is not mutually exclusive anymore. What do you think the sort of 3 takeaway tips or thought processes? Because, you know, to be honest and plain simple, it's not the easiest thing to achieve. No. It's not the easiest thing to just go, yeah, you know, well, I'm going to go paddleboarding on Wednesday because I really just want to, you know, phone your boss and get there on like Wednesday.
I'm not that late this morning. What are you doing? I'm paddleboarding, man.
Yeah, can we have our meeting on the phone? But I know. So what do you think those 3 thought processes is? Because to me, it's not an obvious thing. It's a gradual kind of moving towards kind of process.
Yeah, I think wherever you find yourself and your work, I think, you know, don't stress out. Like, it's not like everybody's doing that. You know, it's something that the world is shifting into.
Yeah.
In a bazillion nuances. You know, it's not like everybody who's successful is doing that and everyone's not doing that.
If Mazillion was a number, right?
Yeah. Jacob Zuma. 11 to 11. Yeah, I know. It's one of our little things. My cat is named after Jacob. It's something. But you know,
I think it is it's a step process, right?
Yeah, it's, you know, if it's something you want, open up your mind to it and start believing that. And just start realizing, and it's not just a belief, like the whole world is shifting that way. You know, why? Well, I don't know. Why did the Industrial Revolution show up? You know, like, I don't know necessarily why, but you can see it shifting if you pay attention. So if you want more freedom in your life and you want a little bit more control over your schedule, I think open up your mind to it. Start just looking around and what's happening. You don't have to be an entrepreneur, but you might want to work for an entrepreneur who has that mindset. That's a possibility because they will extend that to your life, or at least a good entrepreneur would. And I'd say start paying attention to what is work and what is life, and are they balanced? You know, you do not exist to work. You exist to create. So, you know, those two are not always the same thing. So think about that. How much are you working and how much are you living? And how much of those two things can you actually do at the same time? If there's nothing that you can do at work, then you're living in a very confined environment. But hey, I'm not saying quit your job. I'm just saying open up your mind to it, because it is out there. You know, there was a time where I was also just working, 12 hours a day for somebody else. And I opened up my mind to the idea that didn't have to be that way. And a few years later, that happened with some action. Also, what is your dream? What is freedom and what is your dream? Like, what would your dream look like? My dream does look like, you know, again, going to Egypt and photographing, you know, a great businessman around the pyramids. That's something that's going to happen for me. So it's, you know, what is it that you want your work-life balance to actually look like?
Yeah.
And start just making small steps towards that, you know, whatever that is, mindset, a morning routine before you actually go to work, if that's one thing that is stressing you out. But I do feel like whatever we do, we can take steps to just get slightly closer and closer just by making small changes, you know. And one day you wake up and you're exactly where you thought you were going to be, and you don't even realize it until you're there and you're like, oh my gosh, look where I am, you know. And yeah, so now my board meetings every Wednesday are easier. But what is the part? It also requires discipline. You know, we go on our board meeting, but by 12 o'clock, we're back in our offices working or doing whatever we need to do, or taking our calls or attending to our clients. So it's about discipline too. So check the discipline in your life. Are you disciplined? Do you have some level of discipline? You know, discipline in all areas. I feel like entrepreneurs really need to be disciplined, or people who have a work-life balance. Discipline is something that is required.
Yeah. I think Will Smith has a whole video on YouTube, and if you've never seen it, but he has a whole video on YouTube about discipline, and he's like, the closest thing to discipline is loving yourself, or the closest thing to loving yourself is discipline. And when I first thought, I was like, this is just weird. Like, that's just like, what are you talking about? But like, if you think about it and you go, yeah, so if I'm not disciplined enough to really stick to this thing that I'm aiming to do, how much love do I actually show myself, or do I recognize for myself, or do I pay attention to? But I wanted to leave us with a quote from Gary Vee. You know Gary Vee?
Yes, I love him.
Crazy Gary Vee says, life shrinks and expands on the proportion of your willingness to take risks and try new things.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, right. So even you know, when you think of this conversation today, you're kind of going, damn, like this is a risk. This might be pushing me outside my comfort zone. But the moment you get there, life tends to kind of start showing up differently, and you kind of go, oh, well, I didn't realize this. I didn't think of this. And it's like, there we go, right?
There it is. Sometimes you just have to allow it, you know. Sometimes you're creating it. You're always creating it, but sometimes you have to sit back and just allow it to happen. But, you know, it's a great topic. So thank you, Gary Vee, for that one. So life
absolutely.
Expands. Awesome.
Lauren, thank you for having a fun conversation as always. And it was a good one. I'm glad you're having a good week so far. And
absolutely.
Thanks for chatting. If anyone wants to get hold of you, where do we go to check you out and see?
You know, if you want to check us out, we're currently pivoting our business to really serve certain communities. So if you want to check that out, it's www.laurenbritzphotography.com, or you can just find me on Instagram. I'm always on my Instagram at Lauren Britz Photo, or even on Facebook, also Lauren Britz Photo. So thank you for that, Kev. I hope to be hearing from you soon. If anybody has anything they need to ask about photography, branding, we are the branding photography experts, so we'd be happy to help you out.
Fantastic. Lars, thank you so much, and I will then chat to you next week.
Thanks, Kev. Have a fabulous week and weekend, and I hope to chat to you very soon.
And you. Chat to you later. Ciao.